This is a story about finding your voice when the world tries to silence you, about discovering that your greatest strength comes not from what you own, but from who you choose to become. On the island part of Lagos State, where extremely wealthy people flaunt properties, cars, and wealth, there lived a girl who thought she owned the world. Her name was Brenda, and she was about to learn that everything can change. In just one day, Chief Martins was the richest man in all of Lagos State. His construction company built half the city's skyscrapers. But behind his success lay a dark secret. He built his empire by exploiting the poor, taking their land, and silencing anyone who dared speak against him. And Brenda? She was his precious daughter, his only child, spoilt, entitled, and shielded from the truth. At 19, she had everything money could buy. Designer clothes from Paris, a red Ferrari, a mansion in Banana Island. But she had never heard the cries of the women her father's business had destroyed. Brenda spoke to people like they were invisible. She had been taught that money was power, that wealth meant you could treat others as less than human. But the ancestors say, the tree that stands tallest catches the strongest wind. One day, Brenda's day started like any other. She woke up in her silk sheets, planning her day as usual, to shop at Palms Mall, and have lunch at the most expensive restaurant in Victoria Island. Blessing. Blessing. Bring my breakfast to the balcony. And iron my white Valentino dress. I'm meeting the minister's daughter today. Brenda shouted, but downstairs in the servants' quarters, Blessing was crying. She had just received news that her sister had been evicted from her home because Chief Martins had claimed the land for his new hotel project. Blessing needed help, but she was too afraid to ask. Who would believe a house girl over the great Chief Martins? Brenda's phone buzzed with messages from friends praising her latest Instagram post. But at that exact moment, 300 kilometers away, a group of women sat in a small church, holding hands and praying for justice. They were survivors, women who had lost everything to Chief Adebayo's empire of exploitation. At exactly 10:47 a.m., Brenda's phone rang. It was her father's personal assistant, Mr. John, and his voice was shaking. Brenda, where is your father? The EFCC is here. They have sealed all the offices. They are saying he's under investigation for land grabbing and intimidation, said Mr. John in a shaking and frightened voice. What nonsense are you talking about? Do you know who my father is? He owns this city. Call the commissioner of police. His daddy's golf partner. Brenda, listen to me. This is serious. They've frozen all the company accounts. Your father's phone is switched off. And there are women, many women, they are giving testimonies about. Brenda interrupted angrily. About what? What lies are they telling? About how your father's men threatened them, took their land, destroyed their businesses when they refused to sell. Some say they were physically harmed when they tried to resist, and your father took their daughters away. Mr. John responded. For the first time in her life, Brenda heard the word that would change everything: survivors. Women who had been silenced, threatened, and hurt were finally speaking their truth. Within 2 hours, Brenda's world crumbled. The EFCC seized their mansion. The banks froze their accounts. Her Ferrari was towed away. Her designer clothes were confiscated as evidence of ill-gotten wealth. Chief Martins was nowhere to be found. He had fled to London, leaving behind his daughter and the wreckage of his crimes. The servants who had once bowed to Brenda now looked at her with pity, and something else. They saw her now as what she truly was, a young woman, alone and afraid. That night, Brenda found herself in a place she had never been before. A women's shelter in the mainland area of Lagos where she had no status as a rich kid. She was just like everyone else. The shelter was run by Mama Muri, a woman who had dedicated her life to helping those society had forgotten. At the shelter, Brenda met women whose stories shattered her heart. Women who had lost their homes to her father's projects. Women who had been threatened when they tried to seek justice. Women who had been silenced when they tried to speak their truth. A lady named Funmi approached Brenda. She was about the same age, but her eyes held pain that Brenda was only beginning to understand. I used to clean offices in your father's building. Funmi started, when his men came to take our family land, I tried to report it, but they made sure I understood that poor girls like me don't have voices that matter. They hurt me. They threatened my family. They said if I ever spoke about it, they would destroy us completely. I stayed silent for 2 years until I found this place. Until I learned that my voice matters. For the first time, Brenda understood her father's wealth wasn't just built on business, it was built on the silence of women like Funmi. Women who had been hurt, threatened, and forgotten. Days passed, and Brenda learned to cook, to clean, to listen. She heard story after story of women who had been silenced, but were finding their voices again through support, through community, through refusing to be ashamed. Brenda, you have a choice. You can run away, try to hide from what your father did. Or you can stay and help us heal what he broke, said one of the women as they were walking together. That night, Brenda made a decision that would change everything. She picked up her phone and did something she had never done before. She used her voice for someone else. My name is Brenda Martins. My father is Chief Adibeo Martins. I want to tell you the truth about how his wealth was built, and I want to tell you about the women he silenced. Brenda started. The video went viral. Not because people loved her designer clothes or her luxury lifestyle, but because she was finally speaking the truth. She was using her privilege to amplify the voices of those who had been silenced. Brenda's testimony became the key evidence that helped convict her father. But more importantly, it gave courage to other women to speak their truth. The shelter became a hub of activity as more survivors came forward. The girl who once commanded servants now served others. The girl who once cared only about designer clothes now cared about designing a better world for survivors. 1 year later, Brenda stood before the United Nations, invited to speak about supporting survivors of gender-based violence. She wore a simple dress, made by women in her shelter's cooperative. Her jewelry was handmade by survivors who had learned new skills. I once thought power came from having everything. I learned that true power comes from using your voice to lift others up. Brenda said as she started her speech. I thought wealth meant having the most expensive things. I learned that real wealth is building a community where everyone's voice matters. As she spoke, women across Africa watched on their phones. Women who had been silenced found courage. Women who had been isolated found community. Women who had been broken found hope. The ancestors say, when the roots of the tree are deep, the tree can weather any storm. Adoni lost everything that was shallow, her money, her status, her privileges. But she found everything that was deep, her purpose, her voice, her ability to heal not just herself, but her community. And so, the rich man's daughter who lost everything in one day became something far more valuable than she had ever been before.